Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Highly Taken Podcast Secret Edition today. David Secret back at you again from Tallahassee, Florida.
Dylan Secret back at you from Des Moines, Iowa.
It's a great, you're for sure, Des Moines, Iowa. You guys just don't look him up. A lot of good sports are getting back into the swing of things. Baseball started.
Yes.
But right now, we're going to talk about the NCAA tournament. We're in our Final Four. I guess the first game I'm going to start off with is going to be the UConn versus Bama game. Dylan, what do you have there?
I'm going to say roll tide. I think Alabama is going to beat UConn. Nobody believed me when I said that Bama would beat North Carolina, and I was right. I just think that Alabama right now is rolling, and they're playing really good basketball. I just don't think that UConn has faced much competition on their part of the bracket, and I think they're finally going to play against a really good Bama team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have to roll with UConn. Now, for Bama, this is their first Final Four in their history of the program, which is good on them. We're used to seeing them succeed in football. Nice to see them start succeeding in basketball, I guess, if you're from Bama. But, I mean, UConn is looking to go back-to-back. UConn has unanimously looked like the best team all year, even through the tourney, and simply no team has been able to touch them. I mean, they're winning games by like 15, 20 points, going on 30-0 runs in the tournament, which is ridiculous. I'm on the opposite side of you, Dylan. I think UConn wins, and I think they win by 15 plus. I think it's going to be a blowout win for UConn.
I think what you said, they've won by like 15, 20 points every game. I think that with younger guys, unless the coach is talking to them about it, they may think that they're just going to roll into the championship game. And when you do that, that leaves you susceptible to a team that's lesser than you coming in and playing really good basketball, having a chip on their shoulder, something that UConn doesn't have. Bama has nothing to lose. They've made it to the Final Four, but, I hate ESPN's post about how Bama is the only team to have a basketball team and a football team in the Final Four. All football is a Final Four, but I think Bama has nothing to lose. I think with that chip on the shoulder, I think that they're going to beat them. I think they're going to play with more intensity than UConn's going to expect.
Yeah, I think I think it's for sure. I mean, granted, Alabama shouldn't have been in there. Well, that's hearsay at this point. But Alabama, they've played good basketball, and you can't count them out. I mean, they've played 3 or 4 games. Now they're 2 away from being a national champion. On the other side of the ball, we have the NC State versus Purdue game. The one most people are more excited to see just because of the story of NC State. Dylan, where do you see this game going?
So one thing that NC State has that a lot of the other teams in this bracket doesn't have is how much momentum that they are drawing in, not only from winning, but just from the fan base and the publicity. I honestly think that NC State is going to win. I think they'll beat Purdue. One thing that I like about NC State, once again, I like that they're in that underdog role right now. Not a lot of people expected them to be in this place. And because they won the ACC tournament, they were brought in, and they're proving why they should have been in the tournament in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I also like the story of Purdue. I mean, you have a team that the last 4 or 5 years has just been the top seed that gets upsetted every single year. They've been the butt of every joke. They get their first Final Four appearance since like the 1980s. But I've loved NC State even before the tournament started. I talk about how they were one of my dark horse teams. I mean, you go in, a team who was a 10 seed in the ACC tournament goes in, they beat Duke. They beat Virginia. They beat UNC in the championship game. And they've been playing win or go home games every single week now or every single game now for the last month and a half now. And that helps them. I mean, you beat, like I said, Duke 2 times down the stretch now. I mean, you beat Duke in the Elite 8 to get to the Final Four. But I think the craziest thing is you look at Purdue. They just had Edey won the College Player of the Year, which is the first time a player has won back-to-back College Player of the Years since 1981 to 83 with Ralph Sampson on the Houston team. But, which I don't know if anybody's mentioned this yet, do you know who won the 1983 national championship?
Um, was it North Carolina?
It was North Carolina State with coach Jimmy Valvano being the underdog, beating that Houston team, which 1983 was the national champion. So could history kind of repeat itself almost 40 years later with this NC State team being an underdog against this Purdue team with the two-time defending player of the year? I think, yeah. I think NC State is going to win it, and heck, I would even say they're going to win it all. This NC State team, like you said, has just gotten hot at the right time when they needed to. And it's really hard to go against an 11 seed. You really want to see the 11 seed win. I believe they would be the highest seed to ever win a national title if they were to do it all this year.
But you look at teams like I believe it was 2018, if I'm correct, with Loyola Chicago,
Mhm.
riding it all the way to the Final Four. They just fell short against Michigan. But I think NC State has one, better talent, and two, they have once again more momentum, more passion, and they're fighting a lot harder than Loyola Chicago did that year.
Yep. And I think the big thing that people are understanding is the matchup difference. You have Burns, who's a big guy. Not even is he a big guy, he's
Yeah,
a big guy going against Edie, who's not all that big. He's tall, but he's not all that strong himself.
yeah,
What's going to be interesting is just going to be the free throw differentiation in this game. Purdue has been shooting a large amount of free throws. I believe that Edie is now the fourth or sixth player in NCAA history to shoot over 400 free throws in a single season, which is crazy. Kind of tells you how the calls are being played there. So it's going to be interesting. NC State's going to have to play good defense, clean defense, make sure they don't get those calls to send Edie to the free throw line when he's a 70-75% free throw shooter
yeah.
himself.
Well, you look back. A good example of what this matchup to me is like. You look back at that Duke UCF matchup with Zion Williamson and Taco Fall. A lot of people expected Taco Fall to just dominate Zion because of that height difference, but the difference was Zion was a lot stronger, and he was able to get Taco Fall out of the paint. Um, that's the thing that people don't realize is even though you're tall, if you don't have the strength, somebody that's stronger can bully you when
Yeah.
like when you're expected to dominate.
Yep. And I saw that in high school. Rontre and Dontre Chavis was absolutely bullying Cody Zeller down the low. Cody's a
Yeah,
big guy. Cody is an NBA talent. Obviously, he's been in the league, a veteran for many years. Great IU basketball player, but Rontre and Dontre would bully him whenever they played, especially during the 2009 state title run. And, sometimes you got to get that strength in there to get those boards. It's not all about just being tall. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I hope NC State does it. Again, I love the underdog story here. And also, I don't really want to see Purdue win. And no offense to Purdue. I lived in Indiana for a while. I just don't want to see them win.
yeah.
I guess it gets us into some NBA basketball. Now, obviously, the playoffs
Well,
are soon approach. Oh, more you
I
want
was
to say?
gonna since we're still in college, what do you think about the women's side? You
Oh,
got
sorry. I did not mean to skip the women's side.
uh, the matchup that I'm really looking at is that UConn Iowa matchup with Paige Becker going up against Caitlin Clark. Um, honestly, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. You look at the LSU Iowa game, which I think out of all the college men and women broke the record for the highest views. I think it was like 12 million people or something like that
Yeah,
viewed that game.
I'm not sure if it was the most ever, like for men wise, but women's wise, it was like 12.3 million, which I remember sending the message saying I believe that was going to be the highest viewed women's game of all time. Just because
Yeah,
you had two of the biggest names, I would say ever, really, truthfully, ever in college basketball. I mean, ESPN has been doing a great job in getting more coverage, getting more limelights to the women's basketball sphere. And you just had two personalities that probably, again, like I said, two of the biggest college women personalities come out with Angel Reese
yeah.
and Caitlin Clark. That was much watched basketball. It was a national championship game last year. A little rematch there. Iowa got its revenge there. Angel Reese is probably going to be a great player when it comes to WNBA. Um,
Yeah,
and I'm not going to start mentioning all the stuff, the showboating, the trash talking, all that, and then playing the victim,
it's
whatever.
part of the game.
part of the, it has to be part of the game. And people, I mean, people in the NBA do it all the time. You don't see it talking about that much. I mean, Stephen Curry's out here doing the night whatever, the sleep celebration and other
Yeah,
celebrations. And I mean, you got to play it both ways. Now, the only thing I say is just being upset when other people do it. That's the one. Don't play the victim at that point. But other than that, she
yeah,
has all right to talk trash. And what's the one way you can stop people from talking trash? Winning.
with your play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, it's great, and you know what? I'm honestly kind of, I'm not, maybe you might not watch it, but I'm actually excited for how the women's bracket's looking right now. You
Yeah.
have NC State again. The women's NC State team made it, and I think this is the only time in NCAA history that women and men's team are sending their teams to the Final Four, which is crazy. Great to be at NC State right now. But then you have a great legendary matchup. You have that Iowa team versus a UConn team who's been the powerhouse of
Mm,
the WNBA, of women's national college basketball for the past 15, 20 years. And then you have on the other side this juggernaut of a South Carolina team who's just been making teams look like easy opponents every single time.
yeah.
All year, they're undefeated. They're looking to be, I forget what number team to go undefeated all time in women's basketball history, but they right now they're probably my favorites. Is that South Carolina team? I've seen no flaws in their game. The minimal amount of game I've seen of them, they just look dominant, and that's the team to beat right now. Would be interesting. I would love to see NC State go into two tournaments. I would want to see NC State win both of those, just because it'd just be an interesting story to have two
Yeah.
teams from the same college win their respective championship.
Yeah.
But okay, I guess I'll go into NBA now. NBA is heating up. We have about 5 or 6 games left of the regular season right now. And I want to talk about the Sixers, obviously. Big Sixers fan. Embiid's finally back, and they're now 2-0 with Embiid. Two
Yep.
big wins, two good teams. Thunder, number one team in the West, and then the Heat last night, who were number 6 before they lost, but I believe they are number 7 now. Six are at 8. And so now the Sixers are one game back of that 6th seed, which, the 6th seed is a guaranteed playoff spot. They don't have to play into the tournament. And they play a very easy final stretch. I'll give you the games here. 4 out of 5 of the games should be easy wins. They play the Grizzlies, the Spurs, the Pistons, and they finish with the Nets. Second to last game is going to be the hardest. They play the 4th seed Magic team.
Hmm.
Honestly, it's set up for them to make a decent run, especially with Embiid being back, getting them some games to get back in the game shape. I think the Sixers have a great chance of getting that 6th seed.
I agree. I think, like I was saying, I forget how many weeks back, but I said that Sixers team just needed to hold on until Embiid got back. Um, right now, the sad thing is you would want your players to be playing well to the point where Embiid doesn't have to be playing as much near the end of the season, just getting off of that injury. But I guess one thing that it does now is, especially like you said, it's easy teams. Embiid may not have to play as many minutes, and he's getting reps. One thing he said after that Thunder game was he feels fat and out of shape. You're playing these teams that, like you said, should be easy wins, but then again, it's the NBA, all
Right.
professional sports teams, all good talent. But with these teams that they should be able to beat, you got to rely on people like Maxi. Maxi with a great game. I think
He was
39 points.
39 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists. He was one rebound away from a triple double last night.
Yes, and Maxi, it almost feels like when Maxi has Embiid there, Maxi plays way better. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying he doesn't play well without him, but I think the way that Embiid gets the defense to all like surround him leaves people like Maxi open, leaves people like Kelly Oubre open. So those other players on the court start to play a lot better. Tobias Harris plays better with Embiid on the floor, but once again, it's the superstar there, and you got to hope maybe they get a lead in the fourth quarter where they could be like, "All right, Embiid, go ahead, sit out for most of this quarter unless
Hmm.
we need you," and being able to help get that rest.
Yeah, and I think you nailed on the head there. Embiid really, he like sucks. He sucks in the defense, gets the perimeters open, and then you just
Yeah.
have Maxi up there ready to shoot, Tobias ready to shoot. We have Buddy Hill now. We'll finally get to see how Buddy Hill looks with Joel Embiid on the court. I feel
Mhm.
like that's going to be the big thing. I'm going to see how Buddy Hill produces now. But yeah, last night, I mean, Oubre has really proven himself this year. He's played some really good basketball this year. But I mean, he's been a journeyman, been on like 4 or 5 different teams ever since being drafted. by Atlanta, I believe. And so he's a great player, and I'm excited to see them. Now we look at the other two teams in front of them. The Heat are in the seventh seed; they're half a game ahead of the Sixers. The Pacers are in the sixth seed with that last playoff spot a full game ahead. Luckily, the second, not the next game, but after that is actually Heat versus Pacers. So one team's going to have to lose there. That's good for the Sixers. But Heat don't have a hard schedule to finish the year. They play Houston, which wasn't a bad team, but isn't a good team. Then they play Indiana. Then Atlanta, Dallas. That one's going to be interesting. Then two back-to-back games against Toronto. And then the Pacers have a pretty hard schedule to finish the year. They play the Thunder, then they play the Heats, they play the Raptors, but then they play the Cavs, who I believe are the 3 seed right now in the East, and they play the Hawks to finish the year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, the pieces are falling into place for Philadelphia, but it's about these players and the coach executing and not looking too far ahead,
Hmm.
seeing that schedule and underestimating teams. Because you see teams that like the Thunder probably thought, oh, 76ers and Beats first game back, easy win. And then the 76ers turned that around and played a really good game, really close game, and they came out on top. So the important thing is for the Sixers, play their style of basketball. Don't look too far ahead and don't get complacent when it comes to winning.
And then I guess in other NBA news right now, big news here is going to be what happened with the New York Knicks. Julius Randle is now out for the remainder of the season. He has to go through some shoulder surgery. Knicks are right now fifth seed in the East. What does that do for their team? They've looked pretty decent all year, but now they're without arguably their best player. Oh, who's low?
Yeah, it's a huge loss. You had a great. Is it better now?
Your video is a lot laggy.
Better,
It's
better now, David.
I can hear
David,
you better. It's just your video's frozen.
is it better now?
No.
Well, I'll just go ahead and talk. So so the thing is, you had a great duo with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. The Knicks were playing really good basketball this year, and now you're losing not only a good scorer, but he was also a big body on defense that could get rebounds. Uh, it's going to be a hard loss for the Knicks, and you just got to see how Jalen Brunson can step up even more than he already has. Maybe give his team a better chance.
Yeah, it was kind of sad. Like the Knicks are somewhat a rival, being up in New York against the Sixers. I guess is whatever. It's not a huge thing, but you'd like to see the Knicks play at least decent. This is a team that hasn't won a title since like the 1960s, 1970s, when like Phil Jackson was a player on that team. And so they haven't seen much success. They've had talent come and go. Your Carmelos, your Patrick Ewings, guys that are pretty good, but just couldn't get the job done. Um, so it kind of
Jeremy
stinks.
Lin.
Jeremy Lin. Well, yeah, Jeremy Lin. It just kind of stinks because I feel like this could have been a decent year for them. They could have made a playoff push last year. Were they in the Eastern Conference Finals last year? Or they in the no? They're in the semifinals. I mean, they played the Heat in the
Yeah,
semifinals.
last year's Eastern Conference Finals, if I'm
It was
correct,
Celtics
was I
Heat.
think Celtics Heat, yeah,
Yeah.
and then it was Heat versus Nuggets in the
Yeah.
finals.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of shame. I mean, if anything, we saw with the Sixers too. They had some key injuries in some past playoffs. Obviously, the Warriors back when Boogie Cousins and Klay Thompson and KD were all injured when the Raptors ended up winning their finals. So it's definitely very interesting. I guess we'll go to some NFL news now. The biggest one definitely going to be that Diggs trade. Stefon Diggs being traded to the Houston Texans, which is just obviously huge.
Yeah, I think that the way that the Texans have played this off season makes them, in my opinion, think they're one of the AFC favorites. I honestly believe the way that they made a playoff push here with like not now, but the fact that they play competitive against the Ravens for at least for a little bit. But now you have three really good receivers in Tank Dell, uh, Nico Collins, and now Stefon Diggs. Three weapons for a really good quarterback in C. Stroud. Not to mention Joe Mixon being there at running back with Damian Pierce there as well. Uh, they're looking like a really well built team, and D'Amico Ryan's is doing really well as a head coach there. Defensive mind, but he has an outstanding offense. So I'm looking forward to see what Houston does in the draft because right now it's looking like all they need is more.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you see what the Houston Texans have done this offseason. I mean, they've made so many great moves to not only increase their defense, but also to boost an already decent offense that looked really good last year. I mean, you give Stroud two new weapons this year. You give him Joe Mixon and you give him Stephon Diggs. Oh, Dylan died. He didn't want to hear what I had to say? Dylan. Hello?
Hello,
There we go.
that was weird.
Um, but yeah, like I was saying,
I got sacked.
they get well the people who sacked been sacked too.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean you see what they did on offense. I mean they even have Dalton Schultz still. That's their tight end, a really good tight end. They still have him too. But look what they did on the defensive side of the ball. They went out and they got Daniel Hunter, who's a great guy. You pair him with Will Anderson Jr., who was the defensive rookie of the year last year. They also went and got Danico Autry, great defensive tackle. Then you go out and you get Aziz Al-Shair, great linebacker, and then now you have a cornerback room that has Derek Stingley Jr. in it, drafted last year. But then they also went out and got Jeff Okuda, who's going to be very interesting. Obviously, he was a third overall pick coming out of Ohio State from the Lions, looking to
yeah,
kind of turn around with a defensive-minded head coach who knows what that could do. But I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. I would go as far as to say not only are they AFC contenders, I would come out and say they're my AFC favorite
Super
right
Bowl.
now. I mean, they
But that's what I said.
Oh, you're saying,
AFC
yeah. I
favorites.
mean, yeah, they have a complete team. Now we're going to have to see how that defense does
Yeah,
with the new players around them to kind of solidify that. I mean, they're probably going to end up drafting defense too in the draft too. Wouldn't be surprised. But I mean,
yeah.
you're looking at a really good, solid team here too. And I'm just interested to see what this team does now. They'll probably end up drafting, I would say, safety, linebacker, maybe when it comes to the draft this
Maybe
year.
offensive line.
Maybe, yeah, that'd be good too. Then, and they traded their first round pick to, was it the Minnesota? Who they traded their first round pick to? It was Minnesota, right?
Sure wasn't for Stefon Diggs.
No, because they traded their, well, they traded a second for Stephon Diggs. So it could have been the second they got, they traded for Stephon Diggs. But
I
I'm pretty
think
sure,
I think you're right. Their first round, they traded to Minnesota.
yeah. And so, I mean, it's going to be interesting. This Houston Texans team, I mean, you they're looking good. They're looking scary. And if you're a team in the AFC South, I mean, good luck to you. The Titans haven't had a bad offseason this year. They're definitely without a good quarterback, but I mean, they went out and they got Calvin Ridley, signed him to a good deal. You went out and you got Tony Pollard, not a bad signing there. They went out and they got Snead from the Chiefs in a trade. They've had a decent offseason. Will it be enough? I don't think so. I still think they're probably a bottom tier
Yeah,
team in the AFC South, especially, no offense, but I don't think Will Levis is the option there. Um, but then you also have, the teams like the Jaguars, who were supposed to be for the next several years the team to
the
beat in the AFC
favorites.
South. Not even there anymore.
Yeah,
I mean, they came in like second or third place in their division last year. The Colts overachieved, I feel like, last year. The Colts had a really good year with a backup quarterback, and it's going to be interesting to see how Anthony Richardson does because he's not Gardner Minshew. Complete opposite quarterback of Gardner Minshew. And now we're going to sit there and put him in that offense. It'll be interesting to see how the offense does with them, though. So, I mean, a lot of things that AFC South, it's
yeah.
just the Texans just have looked so good in the offseason and probably the best offseason of any team so far this year.
I know. With with that AFC South division, the Jaguars, one thing that I said was they need to go and they need to draft receiver. They lost Calvin Ridley in the offseason. They picked up Gabe Davis, but Gabe Davis isn't a number one receiver.
Yeah.
I honestly think I don't know what pick the Jaguars have. Uh, I think it's
Uh,
in the teens, right? Or
it
is it?
has to be in the teens unless they traded the pick. I mean, I don't remember where the Jaguars are.
But they need like with a wide receiver rich draft, like they have this year. I think that first round, Jaguars should need to go after a
Well,
receiver.
they'll probably go after offensive line because I mean they have a pretty bad offensive line over there. But
Yeah,
didn't they go out and get a defensive player this year though? I feel like they got a defensive player this year, but
I believe so.
regardless, the AFC South, a division I thought was going to be ran by the Jaguars the next several years, looks like just Houston's the run for a while here. Now the contract's interesting for Diggs. They got rid of the back like 3 or 4 years of his contract, and it's now just a 1 year deal, which makes it a contract year, which could arguably be even better for the Texans because now he has to prove himself to get either better money with the Texans or go somewhere else and get paid next year. And he had an off year last year.
Mhm.
Let's be honest, he did not have a year that Stefon Diggs should
Yeah,
have had last year.
yeah. Well, it makes you wonder. I think, honestly, in my opinion, I think Stefon Diggs, his decision is going to be based off of selfish desires. I think it's going to be based off of how many targets he gets this year. Because if he gets a lot of targets with a good quarterback like CJ Stroud, I think he'll stay. Kind of like with the Bills, when he was getting his targets from Josh Allen, he was very complacent. He was very happy. Josh Allen is my quarterback, defending him. But when his targets started diminishing, that's when he started attacking the the team as well as Josh Allen. You saw like different times on the sidelines him yelling at Josh Allen. Uh, but yeah, I think it's going to be a selfish type thing. If he doesn't get the targets he wants in Houston, I think he'll go somewhere else. Maybe next year if he leaves, maybe he'll go to Dallas to join up with his brother or something like that. I don't know,
Now
but
here's
he's a selfish player in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely is one of the definitions of diva. I mean, you see in the signs every single year. Now, we talked about the Texans. What does this do for the Bills? Now, you have a team who just lost Gabe Davis. They lost their two. Now they lose their one as a trade. We talked about all last year how the problem with the Chiefs, not Chiefs, the problem with the Bills is that they made Josh Allen do it all. And then you go out and you get rid of a lot of their guys. So now you're stuck with a good tight end tandem, probably a top three tight end tandem in the league with Knox and with Kincaid. But now you're stuck with Curtis Samuel at your one now. That's who your one is. So I mean, you got to think they're looking to draft, right? Like what are they, where are they thinking they're going to do
Yeah,
to replace those wide receivers?
I don't know. Is Odell?
I mean, Odell's still
Is he still free
available.
agent right now?
I mean, yeah, part of my mind was thinking, not out of the question for T. Higgins to get traded there. Um, Obviously Justin Jefferson, they have a couple ones, who not ones, but I don't actually Bills don't have any ones, do they? Well, the Bills
But
have some.
like the other thing with the Bills is it's not is that they're getting rid of his weapons. They're getting rid of a lot of weapons, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defense side too.
Hmm.
It seems like the Bills, even though they were playoff contenders, now now it seems Bills are in a rebuild probably.
Yeah, and it's weird to sit there and think that. I mean, you have a team that was a 2 seed. I mean, although they, weren't playing that well last year, they ended the season well, got a second seed. They were, 3 points away from going to the AFC Championship last year. And, now you have a team who just seems like they just imploded on themselves. They got rid of a bunch of their defense, got rid of a bunch of their offense. They really haven't replaced any of that. The team just seems, I don't want to say complacent, but they just haven't done anything. And you wonder, why would they give away all this talent just to not try to replace it? Unless they have some weird long game. I mean, Josh Allen's not getting any younger. He's a quarterback who, before Diggs got there, was having questions whether or not he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL. now you lose Diggs, and now it's going to be interesting to see how he does now without that weapon.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at a guy that has, I think he had the most interceptions out of all the quarterbacks last year. He turns the ball over a lot during games, and now he doesn't have a strong weapon, strong wide one. So you wonder either A, maybe his picks were forcing targets to Stefon Diggs, or B, maybe he's just going to throw more interceptions this year because he doesn't have that number one receiver.
Right. Now, that's going to be interesting nonetheless. I guess we can get into some a little bit MLB. We have about 4 minutes left here, so we can either start a new one or if you have to go into work, we can just end it. But MLB, we're gonna start with Phillies started off pretty slow. They're 2-4 right now. Harper started off slow, was 0 for 11 the first couple games. Then he turned it up a bit. He's believe I want to say like 4 for the last like 8 or 9. Obviously, 3 home runs in one game. Where did the Phillies' woes start? And will they turn it around?
So I honestly believe right now, I think a lot of it was reps in spring training. A lot of these starters didn't get as many reps as they would might like in that lineup. I also think right now they're not utilizing Wiz Wit.
Right.
Whit Merrifield was a big name that they got. Had a really good year last year with the Blue Jays, and now it just seems like they're underutilizing him. And it seems like they're choosing Rojas over him when Rojas isn't a big bat. Rojas, I think he's over on the entire season,
Mm.
and that's an issue. Yes, defense is supposed to change, but have a player who is playing well with the bat, and you have a guy like Brandon Marsh who is playing really well. I don't know what Rob Thompson's thinking. I think another thing is you have a player like Nick Castellanos who's having a really terrible start of the year. Um, it's hard. He's supposed to be a huge guy, but you saw it. You saw it in the playoff last year. All it takes this guy is slider to the outside, and he's going to swing every single time.
Mm. And it's really a shame here. Now, I completely agree with you. And that's what I've been saying. There's no reason to have Rojas starting. Yes, you can say it's because of his defense, but Brandon Marsh is solid enough on defense to where you can take the bat out of Rojas' hand, put Marsh out there in center, then put Wiswood out in the left field or something. He is a 3-time All-Star in the last 4 years. But then you have him doing his weird lefty rotation. The time where he puts in Sosa and moves over Bohm to first and takes out Stott and Marsh. Two guys who are amazing hitters, but pulls them out and he's like, oh, they're lefties. Like, why we want to do that if you're playing lefties? They're hot hitters. You're taking out good bats in your lineup and you're putting these guys like Rojas, who is 0 for this year. So you got to wonder where is the logic there. I think they're trying to force it too much. I really think they're like, no, we want to hit on Rojas. We want to hit on Rojas. But why go out and get a guy like like Wiswit if you're not going to play him? It doesn't make any sense. And obviously, the biggest thing going to be bullpen.
Yeah.
It's been the biggest thing for the past 10 years now. Go out and get bullpen. Go out and get bullpen. Yeah, ranked number 1 on MLB's polls at the beginning of the year. We knew that wasn't true, and first game of the year did that prove that was true. When you give up like 8 or 9 runs as your stinking bullpen after
in 2 innings.
Yeah, in 2 innings after your starter went out and threw 6 in the third scoreless innings. So I don't know. I mean, it's Rose started defense. It's so early. Usually they turn around in June. And with Nick Castellanos, man, part of me just wishes that we would have just kept freaking Hoskins and then got rid of Castellanos at this point. Maybe it's too early to say that, but you probably could have gotten something good for Castellanos. He's done nothing since that Braves series. We're probably should end it here.
And then you look at another thing. Yeah.
We're gonna end it here.
I probably got to go into work.
Oh, okay.
All right.
And welcome back. Dylan had to go, so it is back in David's corner again. My dogs are fun in the background. I apologize for that. But I was saying, the Phillies, they'll have to figure it out. And it seems like they do the same thing every single year. They are slow to start, hit June, and they strive for the rest of the year. They were like a 90 some win ball club last year. So I guess only time will tell. Next one's gonna be the Tigers. The Tigers started off 5-1. Looked like it would have been 6-0 if they didn't blow the lead in the ninth yesterday. 5-1. Are the Tigers the real deal in that division? This is really tough. They're not a terrible team. I just don't think it's going to hold up for much longer. I mean, you have a division who's probably going to be the Twins or the Guardians winning that division. Um, I just don't see it staying through the entire year. But good for them for starting off as well they did. Now, on the flip side of the coin is going to be the Mets, a team that probably should have started 0-6 if they didn't win against the Tigers in that last game. 1-5, but you had the highest payroll in baseball. Now, a lot of that payroll is players who don't even play there anymore. I mean, people like DeGrom and Scherzer who aren't there anymore. But they have a high payroll. It has nothing to show for it. I mean, it looked devastating in that ballpark yesterday. I mean, there's no one there. I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a Thursday game at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I can understand why no one would go to that one. But regardless, not the start they wanted for the year. And that's for sure. I guess we can go into the last parts. Actually, I may pick some games, but this may go into the last parts. Deflated baller. My deflated baller is going to be the Buffalo Bills. You heard me talk about it. I mean, you went out and traded your wide receiver one for basically a used napkin and some loose change, some paper clips to an AFC team that already was one of the favorites who've had a great offseason, but you just got them better. Meanwhile, your wide receiver one's now Curtis Samuel, and nothing against Curtis Samuel. I'm an Ohio State fan. I love Curtis Samuel. That's just not the one you want starting out there. Now we're going to go with our certified baller. It's going to be the entire Norfolk Tide, and that is the AAA affiliate for the Baltimore Orioles. And Baltimore's had a young team. They have even the best, youngest team in all of the majors here in Norfolk. They went off the last game. One of the guys had 10 RBIs in just one game. And just believe this team right now is 5-1. They've scored 74 runs in their first 16. That's 12.4 runs per game. They're averaging 12 runs per game, which is absolutely insane for anybody. So, good for them. Granted, I think 30 of them came in one game, if I remember correctly, but still 74 runs in 6 games. Not bad at all. And an honorable mention for myself, going to be Ronel Blanco from the Astros. I believe in just his 6th start, gets a no-hitter. First one of the season. Good on him. Astros just feel like they throw no-hitters every single year now, huh? They've always had a good pitching rotation, but good on him. You love to see no-hitters. It's one of the most exciting things in baseball. A guy go out there and allow 0 hits throughout the entire game. So good for him. Then we're going to go with my hot take of the week. And what is that hot take? I'm going to bring you back to Purdue Boilermakers versus NC State. I said here I love the matchup of Burns versus Edey. Right now is 2-time reigning National College Player of the Year. But I think Burns holds him. I think he gets under 20 points. Now, again, the big thing for here is going to be not sending Edey to the free throw line. That's his bread and butter. That's going to be interesting. Got to play some clean defense, some nice defense. You're a physical guy in Burns, so you're going to have to make sure you're not too physical to make the rest a little bit easier to call. So that's going to be interesting. And I guess we're going to have to go through some games this week. We're going to start you off with some baseball. I'm going to pick about 5 baseball games. Then I'll do. Well, we usually do 9, don't we? I'll do 4 baseball games, 3 basketball games, and then I will do 2 NCAA games. Now we're going to start with the first game on Saturday. What's a good one next Saturday? Let's go Red Sox versus Angels. Both teams started off pretty hot. 5-2 Red Sox versus the 4-2 Angels. Ohtani's out. You know what? They're not doing too bad without him. I believe the Angels are going to win this game. The bats are looking hot, minus Rendon, who's like 0 for this entire year. But it doesn't matter. He's getting paid. That's all he cares about right now. I think the Angels win this one. Then you go out and you're going to look at another good game, going to be the Dodgers versus the Cubs. Again, we talk about Ohtani. They're 7-2. Cubs are a good team. They lost Stroman. Does that matter a lot? Maybe a little bit. That's going to be a tough game to pick there. Give me the Cubs. I feel the Cubs are going to, I guess, shock them. I guess it's too early to be shocking. But I'm going to go with the Cubs there. And then I believe that's 2 games. And the next one after that is going to be the Diamondbacks versus the Braves. Braves are a really, really solid team. The D-backs are the reigning National League champions in the MLB. Give me a great game. I'm going to go with the Braves here. I believe that Freed is on the mound in that one. So I'm going to go with the Braves there. Great team, great bats, great pitching. Always exciting to see. And we're going to go into some NBA basketball here. I did three. I'm going to do three, and I'll switch it up a little bit. So tonight we have a great game, Mavericks versus the Warriors. Warriors are on a tear right now. One of the scared teams may have to go up against in the playoffs. And even Mavericks team who are also a really good team themselves. It's going to be a great game. Mavericks right now are favored 4.5, but give me the hot Warriors. They're playing a good style of basketball. And, honestly, I think they get it done tonight against the Mavericks. Another good game to look out for tonight is going to be the Kings versus the Celtics. Kings are a great team in the West, but you have the Celtics, who are right now the best team in basketball, only lost 16 games all year, which is a crazy accomplishment to have 60 wins, the 16 losses. Give me the Kings here. I feel like the Kings may play, I won't say upset because that's not really an upset, but I feel like they'll play a good game of basketball. I'm going to go to what's a good game being played this weekend? I'm trying to find a better game. Give me Heat Pacers. Now we're going to go Heat Pacers. I talked about how this was an incredible matchup. The Pacers are the 16, only a half a game up of the Miami Heat. Obviously, a win here does wonders for the Sixers, but a win here does wonders for them as well. So, who do I see winning that game? Give me the Heat. I'll take the Heat winning this one. They're playing in Indiana, but I don't think that's going to matter. Give me the Heat. And then I'm going to go with some WNBA basketball. So NCAA women's basketball. They play tonight in the final 4 games. I'm going to do 10 games. Let's not do all 4 of them. How about that? Let's do NC State versus South Carolina. No sweat. South Carolina is going to win this by about 25. No offense to NC State, but South Carolina is just that good. I think a 25-point win is probably going to be what we're looking at. Then we have UConn versus Iowa. Again, you have Iowa, who has Caitlin Clark, best player in the women's NCAA side. Then you have a UConn team, historically one of the best, if not the best, women's program in history. Going to be a good game here. I just think Iowa's hot right now. They're on a mission, and I think that mission gets fulfilled here. Iowa's going to beat UConn. This is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be like a 6-point game. I think Iowa's going to do it. I think Caitlin Clark grabs 40 points tonight. I think she goes off 40 points. And then we're going to go to the men's side. This is my last 2 games. We have on Saturday, NC State versus Purdue. I already told you I like NC State. Keep it rolling. Burns is going to shut down 80. Less than 20 points is my hot take. And NC State advances to the national championship, survive and advance. And then you have Alabama versus UConn. And this one that I think is going to be a route to. I think UConn gets this one done. But wouldn't it be interesting if UConn and NC State both won in both men and women's? We could have a UConn versus NC State championship in both sides of the bracket. A complete possibility. Who knows? I mean, UConn's a great team on both sides. We'll see what happens. Regardless, I have nothing else. So have a great weekend. Thank you for watching. If you are watching, all 7 of you, maybe include my mom, who knows she may not watch me either. Again, with scheduling, it's really hard sometimes to get everybody on. People are working. People are, people are working, I guess. So I really wish I could get everybody on, like I said. But hey, thanks for listening if you are. And I guess we'll catch you in the next one. Have a great weekend. Like Nick says, do whatever you want. Like I say, don't. But have a good one.
Highlight taking pockets, we taking over the scene. We drop dubs and chugs, live in the sports dream. From hot takes to deep dive, it's a winning regime. Come join the hype, we not just blowing steam.